We
Yes.
have, on the one hand, Yemen and its resistance being lost in translation. On the other hand, we have things like Signalgate, where you have Pete Hegseth literally saying, and I'll quote this, "We are the only ones on the planet on our side of the ledger who can do this, the bombing campaign against Yemen. No one else is even close." And then, of course, we had the celebrations of the bombings in that text change, fist bumps, fire emojis. At the same time, the United States has sent bombers to Diego Garcia, threatening Iran as it's bombing Yemen. You're saying that Yemen is not people that you can beat, and yet the United States is diving head first into this. What is going to be the outcome here in your assessment now that you've had this experience of being on the inside? How is this going to end? Because the United States under Trump, and it would be the same under anyone else, is saying, well, we're strong, we're going to do it, we're beating them. I'm wondering if the reality is different.
Well, they will have to kill almost 30 million Yemenis to win, because I don't know if these figures are correct. According to them, there are more or less 40 million people in Yemen, and 30 million support the Ansarallah and Houthis. So they will have to kill 30 million people to win. There's no other way, And Ansarallah is like Hezbollah. It's an idea, it's a concept, it's spiritual strength and military force and communal work, social work, which we see many instances. We visited, for instance, the Zakat Authority, which collects the zakat, the voluntary donations according to Islam, and distribute aid to poor people. You cannot kill that. Absolutely not. And this is a nationwide thing. So the moral strengths and the inner strengths of these people, based on their ancient civilization, is something that is absolutely inexplicable to a bunch of clowns in Washington, which only believe in the power of the bombs. By the way, when we were looking at remains of the cancer hospital, there is one unexploded bomb, which they're going to obviously recover and do some reverse engineering on it. And we found fragments. I put it on my Telegram. We found fragments of the American bombs with manufacturer ID and contract number. So this will be tracked by them directly to where these bombs come from, where they were fabricated, etc. And of course, they will have a long list to indict the Americans in an unprovoked, illegitimate, once again, unilateral war. Will this change the configuration of Yemen? No, it won't. Will this change the configuration of the axis of resistance? No, it won't. By the way, there are portraits of Nasrallah everywhere. Even in the old city, in the souk, in front of the souk of the old city, which is about a 15-minute walk from where I am. So this is not going to change. But when they talk about the axis of resistance, first of all, they talk about what Yemen is doing. They never get into detail on the degree of collaboration with other members of the axis of resistance, because their actions and their decisions are specific to Yemen. Nobody else decided to impose a blockade on Ben Gurion Airport or to throw missiles against the USS Truman. This is their own decision. It's the leader and the 9 guys in the high political council, So they are very different from, for instance, you cannot compare what they do to what Iran does. It's totally different. So there is an interconnection and, of course, an alliance of minds, of hearts and minds, no question. But the political decisions and the military decisions are all indigenous. So this points to a degree of sophistication that is very, very high. It's not exactly the definition of barbarians, according to the President of the United States, whose idea of glitz and culture is Mar-a-Lago. And I rest my case.
Pepe, I wanted to get your reaction to what people in Yemen and what your conversations have been like about this so-called signal gate and what it reveals about the United States' effort to, well, the question is to you. What is it really aiming to do, because in the so-called text chains, it was European freeloading. It was, we need tight messaging. It's all about the messaging. Biden, freedom of navigation didn't defend it. It's all Iran funded. What are people's impressions from your travels there about Signalgate and what it all means?
They laughed about. The 10 minutes after the thing was on X, everybody here already knew it. Everybody knew it. The diplomatic circles, the intel circles, the people in the leadership, everybody knew it. And of course, they left politely. That a Yemeni smirk like this, with their jambia, the dagger over here. They say, "Oh my God, it's just really a bunch of clowns." They don't take it seriously, and even the fact that. For instance, I was very, very worried in our conversation. I said, "Are you aware that now the so-called empire, the most important empire in the history of the universe, according to them, they want to destroy it completely?" They said, "Well, so what?" Literally, so what? Because they know it's impossible. They trust their capabilities. They trust especially their resistance. If we are talking about the meaning of resistance on a global level, this is the capital of the resistance. Absolutely. Absolutely. It beats anything else, And nothing is going to deviate them from this purpose, which is, in their own way, try to alleviate the genocide in Palestine. They know that they won't be able to stop it. They're very realistic. But at least they are trying to do physically what nobody else is doing. And now they're paying with Yemeni lives, literally, right? They're absolutely conscious of all that. And that is something that I would say in every one of his daily speeches, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, Al-Houthi is reminding everybody what this is all about. And obviously, everyone will have to pay a price, because the vengeance of the empire is already, off limits, and it's going to be even worse from now on. But and they tell us the same story. Look, what this past 10 years. Do you know that according to their calculations, in 10 years since 2015, the start of the war by the Saudis and the Emiratis, this coalition destroyed 45,000 buildings in Yemen, which gives us what, 4,500 a year. I think it's quite credible as a figure, And when we see results of the hits a little bit everywhere, it makes total sense. Absolutely. And of course, because of the total blockade, because of the harassment, because of the bombs and all that, Yemen is, which is naturally wealthy, naturally rich, is very poor. But they know why, especially because of the House of Saud. Absolutely. They mobilized all the resources of the Saudi Wahhabis to try to destroy Yemen, and eventually annex Yemen for them, which leads us to another very important problem: what's happening to the Isle of Socotra in the south, which is being annexed by the UAE as we speak. And there's not much that the Houthis or Ansar can do about that. It's too far away. It's closer to Aden. In fact, if the Saudis don't like it, the Saudis could do something about it. But the Saudis don't have an army in Aden, for instance. And the Emiratis are putting a lot of money to colonize Socotra. This is a very long-term problem. And it comes back to the same, I would say, British-inspired, British-derived, and British-allied divide and rule, which the Saudis continue after the British left. So the Yemenis have a very good experience of colonization, recolonization, and imposed colonialism. and they have to deal with it still on a daily basis. So comes an empire of upstarts and start bombing them. This is the least of their problems, the way they see it. Of course, it's not going to be. If CENTCOM goes really hardcore, they can flatten whole areas of Yemen, especially the area where we were, the Sada Governorate, which is let's say, the birthplace of Ansar Allah. I really fear about the people who live there, because there will be many more attacks on civilian buildings with the same lame excuse: military targets, a weapons depot, all that crap, And what we saw for ourselves here and in Sada were residential buildings or hospitals. Not a single military target.
Maybe we could talk about the global significance of all of this, because these signal leaks have, of course, been spoken about mainly in the sense of how could the United States have allowed this? It's incompetence by Pete Hegseth and Vance and the rest. At the same time, though, this IDF now turned quote unquote journo of the Atlantic is
He's absolutely filthy, this guy.
It's essentially what he did is he showed war planning in real time in the way that the United States does its business.
This was given to him, Danny. This was fed to him. This was fed. Everybody knows that this was fed to him. These people cannot get a scoop.
He was added. He was added to the group.
So this points to CIA, MI6, or CIA in conjunction with MI6 op. Don't forget that Signal is a CIA op from the beginning. And this myth that they don't have back doors, it was another myth perpetrated by themselves to say, look, this is the safest. I use Signal as well. I never trusted Signal. Never trusted Signal. Either. But the people that I used Signal talking to Americans. And the Americans I was talking to on Signal, they all believe that, look, we have to go on Signal because then nobody knows. Bullshit. CIA was spying on everybody on Signal.
The Yemeni armed forces, they've said that the reason why these leaks came out were to deflect from the military problems that they're actually having. The United States in particular, the U.S. Navy, and of course, Israel now being caught up once again because of its genocide and the missiles that are being launched there. A lot of people are talking about the threat of war with Iran while there is a literal war happening on Yemen and the explosion in West Asia in general. How does this fit in this multipolar picture that you're analyzing now that you've had this visit? Because in a sense, it feels like, and it seems like, exactly what many people were hoping was not going to happen. The United States operating as this unipolar power, attempting to essentially go scorched earth to preserve its dominance. What's your impression about what's been going on now that you've had this monumental experience?
You cannot change the mentality of an empire, especially a dying empire, Danny. It's impossible. These are cosmetic changes in the White House. It doesn't mean anything. Now we have a sort of a revolt of very powerful silos of the deep state against Trump 2.0. And they're going to fight him very, very hard because they want their forever wars to go along. Trump and the Zionists behind him, they have other forever wars in mind, which in their mind is going to be, let's say, a flash war. Because these idiots actually believe that they can launch strikes against Iran and they're going to win. They actually believe that. And even worse, they're manipulators in Tel Aviv, the psychopathological, apocalyptic, messianic, Old Testament, demented or whatever. They actually believe in that. The book told them, So the book told them we have to go there and wow, whatever they say. It's more enlightening to watch a Daffy Duck cartoon, So that's what is dangerous, because we are dealing with a bunch of irrational people who have still a lot of power and who are behind an American administration, again, to implement their own agenda and obviously dragging this new American administration to fulfill their wet dreams. This is extremely, extremely dangerous. And Well, I have to start digging again next week. This past 10 days for me was only Yemen, and I'm still deep into it. And I haven't even written a word about it because I haven't had time. I'm still processing what I'm going to write about that. After that, then we're back to business, which is, okay, are these clowns going to launch a strike on Iran in the next 2 to 3 months? There's a very strong possibility. And they actually believe in it. And so far, the only one that I heard that got the why in the story, well, we are friends, we are always talking, was Alistair Crook. Because he said the window of opportunity is until spring, before the whole JCPOA thing, renewal, not renewal, more sanctions, is absolutely correct. This window of opportunity we have what, April, May, June. Oh my God, this is going to be really hardcore, because the irrationals on the other side, they actually believe that they would be successful in terms of not necessarily crippling the Iranian nuclear program, because they cannot do that. But even worse, decapitating the leadership in Tehran. They actually believe that they can do in Tehran what they did with the leadership of Hezbollah. And the people around Trump, they actually also believe in it. That's what makes it so dangerous. It's the childish dream of an easy victory, and we can get away with it. Well, because these idiots don't know anything about geoeconomics. They have no idea about the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz. They have no idea that Iran has at least 5,000 missiles already pointed to all the American military bases in West Asia. Obviously, they don't see that. They don't see that if you block the Strait of Hormuz, you collapse the global economy as a whole. Obviously, no. And there's nobody there to explain to them, right? And these people don't read on top of it. So that's what makes it so dangerous. And yes, Yemen it's a diversionary tactic, because people then start concentrating on the war in Yemen, and they are not paying attention to what they are planning to do against Iran. And of course, this thing that we're going to have a deal in Ukraine until the end of April. What kind of deal? Are they nuts? Do you think the Russians are going to accept this piece of shit that they are proposing? Obviously not. Once again, extremely misinformed people who believe in their own fantasies, not linked to reality, clownish and amateurish. So this next 2 to 3 months, wow.
Yeah.
This is going to be quite something, and extremely dangerous, no question. But from the point of view of Sana, they look, of course, at this bigger picture. They know that Iran is the big target. They know that they may be the smaller target, but they still are a very big target. But they look at it and say, okay, we can cope with it. It's amazing. It floors you how direct, how straight up, and their integrity. And I said, wow, are they trying to force us to renege our principles? No, we won't. So basically, we can explain their whole position as a moral war. Do we have any moral wars in the 21st century? No, we don't. And in fact, from their point of view, it's a defensive war. It's not a war. They didn't launch anything. They launched a counter offensive to try to make the other irrational side see some sense, which they won't. But in the end, the whole affair is moral, spiritual, based on humanitarian values, brotherly respect to brotherly people, and all that. So in this sense, we can say that it's part of the essence of Islam. And every serious Islamologists will tell you that the real Islam came from Yemen, and it was spread by Yemen historically, not obviously this demented variations that came afterwards, from Wahhabis to Deobandis to Al-Qaeda configurations, whatever. No, this has nothing to do with Islam. The purity of Islam and the purity of helping the needy, in the sense that we saw the authority of Zakat here receiving donations to help poor people. They have a national database of poor people in Iran that can come to their offices. For instance, a family of 5, in need, the unemployed, etc. They have to feed the children. They need clothes and all that. They register. They have a digital card. They go to one of these offices. They can get clothes and food and all that. Then at the end, they show their card to a controller. He puts the whole information on the screen, and that's it. And they can take away the help. It's very sophisticated. It's equivalent to what you have in the most sophisticated countries in the West, Yeah. And it's about helping the poor, helping the needy.
Which is what you don't have in the West.
I'm sorry. What? Danny?
I said, which is what you don't have. Which is what you don't have as much in the West, helping the poor and the needy.
Definitely not. Definitely, especially in the U.S., where it's still cowboy individualism.